Looks like it had a little bleep. You never know with these go lives with tech issues. I think I luck out a lot because my husband's a software developer, so he's got that really good quality internet that's really fast and efficient. I think that's one of the benefits I've had, even though I know that I've had go lives, and anybody who's been with me for any amount of time has known in the past, even though it's been in the distant past, especially if the weather's not so great, I've been disconnected and so forth on these lives. So far so good. At least it was a temporary little bleep. And hi, Honor. I'm glad to have you here. Happy Ostera. It was so pretty out today. It's kind of neat to know going forward we're going to have those longer days. I'm looking forward to being able to sit out on the back porch and take in nature, and I miss that, especially with my music playing and something cold to drink, and just being outdoors in general, which, it is better for us to be outside. So, especially following the winter. So, basically not a whole lot with my day other than, first and foremost, I love our group. I wouldn't trade my group for anybody else's group. I love everybody in this group. I value people, your contributions, your thoughts on things, your willingness to put yourselves out there and be brave and courageous and be unique in who you are. I love that about all of you. And to have so many people step up today saying, hey, I'll do a show and tell, I'll do a card of the day type thing. All these various things that are happening in our group this week, it brings to my heart so much happiness, because this is ideally what I've been hoping to obtain for our group all along, and we're continuing to grow. I expect this group will exceed even what I could have imagined or my expectations, because I have the best people in my group. So Honor says, it's funny, Sharon and I also had issues, but Kyle didn't seem to. He must be special. Yes, Kyle is special. Nobody can ever be like Kyle. I don't know. Maybe Kyle has really good internet too. So I see my husband's on here. So Tim, we were just talking about how maybe I luck out with Go Lives because we have really good internet due to your profession. Other than that, I'm just like you guys. Like, I am not incredibly tech savvy. I know how to post. I know how to make really cool things on Canva, which is all the cute advertisements and photos you see in my group comes from Canva. So it's totally doable. If you ever start your own page or you want to make your own things for our group, it's just hop onto Canva. They even have like an introductory trial, which I enrolled with them a couple months ago. It's like $6 and some change for 3 months. And then I think it'll go up to like 12. But given that I have a small business and I need to be able to make ads and promote various things, to me, it's worth it. And it's such a creative outlet. And then I see that Seraphine's on here. Good evening. So yeah, isn't it a trip? It's just, you never know with tech stuff though. But what I can say though is Honor, you and Sharon have done such a great job about adapting. So you were able to gain your recomposure, your space and center, and both of you executed beautiful readings despite the obstacles. So I think that speaks volumes about your resilience. I wouldn't think mine is bad, but I never have done lives either. But I'm trying on Wednesday. It's a bit scary being live, but it's also fun. Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, I've done it with my makeup done up, my hair, which I washed it today. It's kind of, what's a little flat looking. I'm Southern, so we like big hair. I've done it any which way. The way I look at it is you put your best self out into the world, right? And the people who are meant to love you and accept you for who you are will be there. And if they don't, well, at least you know it's the most authentic version of you. Like, I would rather have people reject me for being myself versus like a fake version of someone that I'm not, And kind of like Casey Musgrave says on this one song of hers, what is it? You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I cannot remember the title of the song right now, but I'm a fan of hers. I like her music. So, and you're welcome, Honor. You know I value you immensely, you know. I mean, gosh, you're just your tarot knowledge and your go-getter attitude, and you've got exciting things going on. It's just really exciting, especially with Ostara and with it being spring with the equinox and everything. All these new beginnings, you know, and tomorrow's a new moon. It's very true. I think it's just seeing myself I need to get used to. Yeah, I agree. That's why I value face-to-face communication. With these go lives, I feel like I'm in maybe my bathroom looking into the mirror, kind of like, you know, when they say people learn how to like give these speeches or some sort of public speaking, and some people practice into a mirror. That is kind of like what it feels like, even though throughout like my career, including my time in the military, I never looked at a mirror and like talked into it to practice. I use the term freeballing it, where you just go and, you know, from, if anything, one of my strengths and one of my weaknesses, people have told me, is that I'm too chatty. And I am. Even with my go lives, it's totally apparent because I can totally shoot the bull forever. And then it's a Southern thing too. And I finally get to what I came to talk about, you know. So I think you're going to do great, because when you posted that video where you had to pre-record yourself doing our group reading, you rocked it out. And the people in our group that responded to it really loved it, you know. But I've gotten used to that via chat, so I think you're going to do great. You know, it's not so bad, especially after you get the first one out of the way. But again, you were at a disadvantage, both you and Sharon were, because your internet was giving you grief. And it's some weird Facebook platform too, because Sharon was able to get onto her Instagram and do a go live, but she couldn't go onto this page and do it. Even though I have looked in the settings, any group member can do a go live. So it's not like I've like restricted that or anything. So it has to be the connection, I guess. You never know with Facebook, you know. So we're going to continue our journey tonight. Let's see here. Honor says, I love that about lives, actually, that it's more chatty. Yeah, me too. It's more like a friend. I agree. I think it's good to have that back and forth, you know, versus like, say if I post the card of the day or something else where it's not like that interactive component. I miss that component. You know, so this is my favorite thing, especially when Facebook is working appropriately and I can see comments. It makes me very happy to see comments. Hopefully mine will work since I moved my tower. We will see. My fingers are crossed, you know, and that's why, as a backup, you know, especially on the stuff I posted in our group after you and Sharon confirmed with me, that's why I put either it'll be a go live or it will be, you know, a video that you guys will post where you record yourself and post it, because you can't help connection issues, for real. So tonight we're going to continue with one of my favorite suits, which is the swords, which usually does show a lot of conflict and a different way of growth versus the other suits. So tonight we're going to talk about the Two of Swords. And I don't know. Isn't this just a really cool card when you look at it? So like I always tell you guys, I want you to take in the colors, because we always talk at length about colors and the meanings assigned to colors based on what we read and what we perceive things. Look at the environment around the central figure. Look at the feet, how they're spaced, what direction they're pointing, the color of her garment. Look at what's in the sky. And how does this card make you feel? Which is very much a gut feeling. So we're talking about your intuition, your feelings. Is this an uncomfortable card? Or does it make you feel comfortable? Which, I was reading this book, which I always show you guys, by Rachel Pollack, Tarot Wisdom. And she said that she actually had this thing she went to with a group of people where they had two swords, And they actually held them like this in the class, right where the shoulders are. And in her book, she talked about how uncomfortable and burdensome that was. That was not a comfortable thing. And it actually took a great amount of strength, especially being that each are held at an angle to where when you think about it, given the length of these swords, they would be very heavy. This would not be an easy burden, to hold for any amount of time. And Honor says, this is one of my favorite cards, actually. Oh, that is so cool. You'll have to, if you want to, if it resonates with you, tell me what's one of your favorites. So what we're seeing would be the Roman numeral for 2. And we see a lady, but again, just like Sharon said with her go live last night, if you guys watched that from Instagram that she reposted, it doesn't matter if it's a male or female. We're talking about the energy of the card. So what we're seeing here is somebody who is blindfolded. And it is a burden to be able to hold each of these swords. It takes a great amount of strength to hold them at shoulder level at these angles. So it does look like she's torn. There's a big X. Also notice the direction her feet are pointing. It's in the same direction as those swords. So what we're seeing here, and she's on this like bench of sorts made of stone. Her feet are planted on a solid stone surface. The water is behind her. And so from where we covered the Suit of Cups, we know water is all about emotions. The sword suit has no time or patience for emotions. This is what we would call, it's got the shadow side to it of being very abrasive. It's to the point. We're talking very much logic. Even though what we're seeing here is she purposely is blindfolded because she's conflicted and torn. So it's being torn about 2 different scenarios, 2 different solutions to a problem, a relationship, or career, not knowing how to move forward because there's a lack of clarity. So what this person has done is she's wearing a white blindfold and she's turning inward to just be alone with her thoughts, to process what she knows, to basically reach a decision, because as per a lot of literature I've read on this card too, it's called, one commonly used word that comes up is stalemate, which is a fancy way of saying an impasse, where it's become to the point where this person may be in the middle of something. It could be they have avoided this situation for a while and it's built up and built up. And now they've come at an impasse, like a crossroads, where they got to figure out, are they going to turn left or right? And then they got to deal with the consequences of that. And what's really hard on this person, again, we're dealing with logic. Suits love logic. And she does not have that clarity, and she needs to really think about her logic. Now, intuition was mentioned as well, which I think I can see how that could be confusing, because with intuition, we're referencing, say, water, those high priestess vibes, emotions turning inward. But see, swords, this is very purposeful. The water is all behind her. She's not immersed in water. However, the intuition is our inner voice, which would be how we feel about things, not just our logic. So I could see how even somebody like the swords who values their logic would still have the inner intuition as to, are they comfortable with what they know or not? How comfortable are they at making a decision on this? So Honor says, I find it calming, actually. It is a decision you will need to make somewhat blindly, but it feels like you're supported and strong. Water behind, not a reactive decision. Beautiful. I love that. No, not at all reactive. I know my intuitive response to this card is non-traditional. No, I love what you just put there, because we're talking about how the water is behind her. So again, this is not somebody immersed in water and reactive out of emotion, which we've talked about in prior Go Lives that we try not to do. We want to be in control of what we say to people, because our actions, including the things we say, can have consequences, and it can cause harm to people. So especially whether or not you believe in karma or the rule of three, which is more of a Wiccan tenet, not everybody shares the belief in the rule of three. Things do come back in this life. Whatever we do put out there will come back to us in some form or fashion. So to each their own with that, right? But with her, so this is a burden. So she's very much turned inward and uncomfortable. And when I see this, I see somebody feeling very, very vulnerable. She's protecting her heart. So her abdomen here is exposed, but this is like she's protecting like her lungs and her heart. Okay. And with the garment being white, with white, that's synonymous with seeking truth. Think of, like we've talked about before, like a blanket of snow, like a clean new start, truth, that illumination, because that's another thing too. She does not have illumination here either. In addition to what we're talking about, there's a moon that's in the sky in the form of a crescent. She doesn't even have full illumination. So this is a call back to say the moon from the major arcana, where if you haven't been with me long and haven't watched all the tarot teaching moments, you can find it the easiest way to find it's on YouTube. But it talks about how from the diminished light emitted by the moon, there is decreased illumination on the path to where someone can't really see where they're going very well. It alludes to hidden knowledge, hidden truths, a dreamlike state to where things don't even feel real. Very much calling back to Sharon, her video from last night, talking about her view of the Seven Cups, or the Seven of Cups. I would say watch it if you haven't. It was really informative. So Honor says, right, to me, water behind means centered. Good points. So yes, and so you can see here, the water takes up a pretty good amount of this card, to where it definitely is something this individual's aware of, but choosing not to be immersed or impacted by. But definitely to make any forward progression on this journey, there's obstacles. So you see these rocks, these pretty big rocks that are in the water. So that's going to make it hard for this individual or any boats, any method of transportation to be able to cross that onto, say, the distant shore. And it makes sense that this individual's where they're at on their journey, because, we go from ace to 10. So, of course, it's not all going to be a nice, tidy package by the time we get to the second card, And so I saw Tim is on here. Other than my husband, there's Tim Clark. And Christy Lee is here. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here. So we're having a really good conversation about the Two of Swords, Christy. So I'm glad to have you here too. And I like how her feet are yellow. So this person, think about all the descriptors that we've used in the past for yellow, synonymous with the sun and what it looks like on a bright sunny day. You've got full illumination, knowledge, warmth, and it happens to be her feet that are colored that way, meaning to move forward on her chosen path, whichever way that is. She wants to do so with knowledge and foresight, knowing where she's going, okay, versus her current state. That's why they're even parted. Again, very conflicted. This is someone who's seated. They're not walking, taking action, very internal at this point. And looking, and again, this is not a comfortable looking bench, so that's just yet another indicator of how much of a burden this is, because her decision will impact not only herself but other people, and it has the potential to change so much, so I really, really like that. So Honor says, so since it's behind her, I feel like she's not encountering the rocks in her future. I don't know. I see it like the threat of what's to come, because this decision is such a a burdenous one, if that makes sense. There's so much riding on this decision to where she would sit like this and turn inward and not want to commit and reflect. And, swords, they all value that logic we were talking about because it's going to have an impact. It could be losing a friendship, relationship, a career. It could be a negative impact on finances. It could have a lot weighing on it. So I think that's kind of like if she kept her eyes open and she wasn't blindfolded, I think all that stimuli would be very overwhelming. Like that would be like, think about if you've been in a room and say if there's a heated conversation going on, like we've probably all been around it in a work-related meeting where there's all these fiery disagreements about like a policy, procedure, how something's done. Nobody's really taken the time to listen to the other one, and you really don't have clarity about what in the heck's going on due to all these emotions that have kind of taken over the room, and it's very uncomfortable. So I think in this scenario, this person is wanting to center, meditate, like we've been talking about in our book club and a bit in this group, about blocking out all that noise and stimuli and just being present with their own logic and intuition and turning inward to reflect, not being influenced by the external, So Honor says, I always thought the resting means I will make my move when I'm ready. I agree with that. That's how I see it too. There's no action. There's no walking here, She's very much seated, bearing the weight of those two swords right along where her shoulders are. I think it's great how we see it opposite, but it's not a debate or anyone being wrong. Not at all, Honor. No. No. I love how you put what you think out there. I don't want people in my group who are going to agree with everything I say because, for one, I am not the tarot authority. Not at all. I am good at what I do, which is why I opened a little small business and I go do readings and all that good stuff. But I'm nowhere near like a Rachel Pollack. That would be the lady I revere in tarot who recently passed away. To me, that's the one with this high level of intelligence and understanding, like the mother of tarot. To me, that's our gold standard. But I think even in her literature, she even sees the different value about different artistic expressions of the cards in her literature, different viewpoints, to where even in her writing, I never hear her voice like trying to act like she's the authority. It sounds to me when I've read her stuff, because that's my main go-to with this stuff, with tarot, very knowledgeable, and she takes in different viewpoints. Like, I love that about her writing. I really do. And she knew what she was talking about. So Tim Clark says she is dressed in all white, which means purity. That's another word. So she is in conflict on her purity of her emotions. I see what you're saying. I like how you brought up purity, the conflict, the emotions. I don't know. I guess what I would need clarification on is, I know emotions are internal, but we've got the logic of this suit that the swords don't like emotions very much. Not like our cup suits. I don't know. You'd have to let me know where you're getting the emotions part of it from is all. And then Honor says, good point. And I think it's like art. Exactly. It's about a lot more than memorization to know tarot. Exactly. That's why when, I read for people, especially if they tell me they have an interest in learning, I tell them, get you a deck, draw you a card, intuitively write what you're seeing and all the stuff we talk about in these Go Lives, then look it up. And that's how you learn them. I remember when I very first started reading tarot, I thought I had to know all the meanings of all 78 cards to be able to do a spread. And I was a self-learner. I was self-taught. And then I took some online courses with Courtney Weber. I took her beginner level tarot course. And I then took some from Biddy Tarot. It was like a summer camp thing online where you could watch different modules and pay like a certain amount. And they had like people who authored tarot decks and all sorts of various viewpoints on it, you know. So yeah. And Melissa Sinova, she was one of the speakers for that too, where she went through the cards. So I don't know. Let's see here. And then, so what we're seeing here is, before I look at my little sheet where I jotted stuff down. So say if you're doing a reading for yourself or others and you get this card. So obviously there's conflict and indecision. Okay. But it's built up to a point where, you know, someone does need to turn inward and reflect on the logic and their gut as to how they feel about this. So with love, this could be somebody with, say, two different lovers. There's two people that show interest in them, and they don't believe in this dating around. You know, she's got to commit to one or the other, okay? And this is he or she, right? As far as the energy goes. Or it could be that she's in love with someone, but her family does not accept the person. So those like Romeo and Juliet vibes, think back to that. That would be like that. Like, ooh, kind of like Juliet had to think as well as Romeo. Do I hang out with my family and not be with the love of my life? Or do I leave all this money behind me and take off with the love of my life? And just think of the burden, like back to that story we read in high school, or if you watch the movies that they've made, there's been several remakes of it, how it put those children, they were kids, in a really tough decision. Because they had to leave everything and everybody they had ever known just to be with each other when their families hated each other just for the sake of their last names. So, I mean, their hormones got them carried away to where they didn't hang out too long with the Two of Swords. But that's a brief example of how they felt. But I think with them, it was way more of the Cups persuasion than swords, right? But they say if you pull extra cards around this, and let's say if you get a reversed Lovers card, or say if you get the Three of Swords, which we'll be covering tomorrow, or yeah, I think those would be the main ones, or even the Two of Cups reversed. Well, you know, you might be thinking, oh, a decision needs to be made about a relationship. You know, or even an Ace of Cups reverse. That could be a new relationship. So you got to look at what's around the card and be like, oh, if it's in reverse, not all reversals are bad. And even sometimes when I do readings, I tell people, hey, look, I'm about to blow your mind. The reversal of this card's not a bad thing. It doesn't happen frequently, but it does. And even in reversals, you know, you don't have to read them if they don't resonate with you, you know. And so Honor says, I had a reading recently, and how he saw a certain card is differently than I usually do. Yes, but his reading was dead on. I love it. I love you so much, Honor, as a person. I really do. That's the thing. Like, we each connect to the cards differently. Okay, so even when I go to the Grand Slam, for example, and I'm working with different readers, each of them may pray to God, or they'll do some little something before they start to read. For me, I'm more of, my style is I dig into the decks. I do clean them between uses. I've got my own way of doing that, which if y'all ever wanted to know, I'd share it with you. But each of us have our own style, and not one style is wrong. And the beauty of having different people read in our group totally reflects how everybody has their own style, their own way of reading these cards. And even the way that Sharon did her reading for our group yesterday even played into that Hermit card we got for the card of the day and stuff, especially with these runes. And the trippy thing is, I didn't even realize it at the time. So it was in the shape of like an I, like 1 and then X. If I put those two side by side, I probably would have put it together in my head. That's 9. Just think on that for a minute. It matched the card. I'm like, how is it I did not make that connection? It was kind of cool because the one rune, what I do is, so when I like do a tarot card of the day, you know, of course I have a clean deck, and I ask, okay, what message should I give Mountain Crow Tarot okay, to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people, meaning that the card of the day may or may not resonate with you. As people who've done tarot for a while will know, if you get a reading from somebody, then you've got a personalized experience. With group readings, it's just, I leave it open to spirit, and then have spirit utilize me as a vessel to act through me onto, with my hands, with these cards, to pull the correct thing that we need to hear, and just hope it resounds. And it may, it could go either way, because I've done some cards sometimes to where I don't know, like, what, like, I don't feel like I'm going through this. But then as the day progresses and you reflect on your cards later on in the day, it's like, oh, I totally see where that card came from. And sometimes tarot has a messed up sense of humor. Like, it's crazy how you'll keep getting the same cards. Just some of the messages it gives you. It's like, so I've laughed a lot of times putting these cards down, like, oh my gosh, how accurate. And Honor says that's cool. Thank you, Honor. So let's see. And then with career, so it could be switching careers up. It could be a dispute at work, and unfortunately you're in the middle of it. And if you pick a side, what's going to happen with the other person in your relationship with them? How's it going to impact things? With finances, with the upright, it's not a good idea to make financial decisions because you lack clarity. So with this upright, again, we have someone who's very defensive. So if we turn it upside down, we're generally speaking about the reverse meaning of the upright. So for example, this is somebody lowering the defenses. So this could be someone who is ready to, say, move forth from this impasse. They've taken the time here. They felt very vulnerable and on the defensive while they're trying to sort things out with logic. Again, Swords is really big on logic. When it's in reverse, okay, that's a good thing. Now, on Labyrinthos, so if you Google a card, you'll generally get Biddy Tarot as the first thing, and then Labyrinthos is the second. Now, they were saying this could be a worsening of the situation. So it's like you're trying to choose between two evils. Both are horrible. And you're having to make a decision between, theoretically, two devils. Which devil are you going to choose with the consequences? And with finances, it's still not a good idea. I don't think this card's a really good thing. I mean, yeah, it shows when it's in reverse, we're ready to take action. But another way of looking at it too is, I don't know how you guys feel, but again, I know we're dealing with swords and logic, and I know Tim Clark pointed out emotions. We just have so much water in the background. So I don't know how I would intuitively interpret that, but it catches my eye, because when it's upright, we have full visibility. Other than, yes, it's a crescent moon. We've got limited light from that moon. We don't have clouds or anything like that, obscuring our view. And then when it's in reverse, another thing I really need to bring up that Rachel Pollack said in her book that I thought was brilliant. The only other 2 cards out of 78 cards that have this overall feel where it's like social isolation and not wanting to interact with others. So she brought up the Hanged Man and High Priestess. Those are the 2 where they turn inward and are trying to gain a different perception. I really like how she wrote that. So I thought that was interesting. Oh, but my runes, I actually moved this bowl to show you guys, see? So this bowl is a sound bowl I ordered off Amazon because I was thinking, I want to try my hand at sound healing. And I got this around the Christmas holiday, and I even recorded it and put it on my personal page. My dog started to howl and get excited, thinking this was the emergency broadcast system. And so it's not a cool bowl as far as the sound, probably because it's not a crystal bowl, but you got to pay some pretty good money for those. But with these, I just thought for my little moonstone runes, well, I'll just put them in this bowl and give that bowl a use to actually hold them, versus not using it and having it go to waste, which irks me, So let's see. I'm going to go over what I wrote for our meanings. So let's see here. So Tim Clark says, still water means emotions are stable, unlike running waters. I see that. Ooh, Tim, I like what you I like what you just did there. Still water means emotions are stable. Unlike running waters, we would have more movement. So what we're seeing here, I don't know. They could have left it completely blue. And I'm not trying to argue with you. I like your insight a lot. It could just be that gradual little movement. Even like it's just kind of like going with the flow and going around the obstacles a bit. Those rocks, you know. I like what you did there, though. I really do. Let's see here. So for the meanings, I'm going to go over the descriptors to be thorough. It's inward reflection or thinking prior to a decision, not taking action, metaphorical fork in the road, protecting self, and meditation. Let's see here. I wrote down stalemate because that word kept coming up in the literature I read or the things I saw online, and impasse. So with symbols, we've got the blindfold, which is to avoid distractions and to look inward. How she's holding the swords can be viewed even as a form of martial arts. It's a means of protecting oneself. Rocks are synonymous with obstacles, stalling progress and action. And that was on, I believe, Labyrinthos. I read that. Let's see here. And water in the background, feet on concrete, not being influenced by emotions. I wrote that down. That was my intuitive thinking on this. So the Two of Swords is a decision with different possibilities. It could be a conflict with another person and standing your ground. It matches the energy of the High Priestess and Hangman who turn inward away from social involvement. And that's per Rachel Pollack. And let's see here. We have different choices. It's also a form of evading. So if someone's stuck here way too long, evading an issue, not making a choice, then we get more of that reversed energy. With love, it could be choosing between lovers, choosing sides. Same thing with career, choosing between two different people, conflicts at work. With finances, you don't have enough info, so unclear finances. And Tim Clark says, since the water is behind her, it's in the past. Ooh, I like what you did again. That is awesome. I love this. I love these Go Live so much. I do. I swear I do. I like that. So that's behind her. And so now she's like, okay, I've already processed my emotions. Now I'm going to delve more into my logic. Nice. Very good. Okay. Let's see here. With reversed, let me go ahead and turn this guy. We're looking at a need to make a choice. Okay. It's kind of like that saying, you know what, you need to poop or get off the pot. She's been on the pot too long when it's in reversed, right? On Labyrinthos especially, they were talking about it's just bad. Like the lesser of two evils. There is no right choice, you know. With the moon, we've got illusion, deception, decreased visibility. That was actually on Labyrinthos too. And then the blindfold symbolizes a situation which prevents her from seeing the problem and solution with clarity. So yeah, so that's everything I was going to cover with that. No, I love the feedback. This is making my night. This has been such an awesome day. Oh my gosh. So we're going to look at some other cards. So we have our little crow friend, and I want you to look for the color use and symbols that carry over. So our crow friend is torn, and it's got a little foot, one on each sword, and it doesn't know. Like, it can't make its mind up about which one it should rest the other little foot on, and there's distractions, right? So looking around, it looks like it's a snowy terrain. It's mountainous. So this goes to show, like, this kind of gives me like hermit vibes, like how the hermit hangs off the side of the cliff with the lantern, turning inward to figure out how to help others. As far as like, do you know what I'm saying? Like that hermit time, it kind of has that. And then of course the high priestess intuitive vibes, like reflecting on, that gut instinct, how it feels, and just the obstacles. I like the use of white. So like Tim Clark said, we've got purity there. And then I see like a new clean start. And then, you think of truth, you think clean, pure, And then look at that sky. Look at the color usage. Just dark, heavy clouds, And so our little friend is just trying to turn inward and not be distracted by the storm that's hanging above their head, to where maybe it would want to make the wrong decision, trying to fly away and seek shelter. And it's not comfortable. Like this little balancing game does not look comfortable. And actually, if we turn it upside down, it kind of gives me those little hangman vibes, like the hangman from the Major Arcana, how it's like one foot is secure and the other one, it's not, which this doesn't quite look like the number 4 or anything, but it totally has those hangman vibes to it, doesn't it? And then we have this one. So we're seeing this lady, and she has a loose blindfold. It does not appear to be tied around her. And you see how she's got her hand? Like if she wanted to, she could totally take that off. But she's trying to, do what we've been discussing with the whole energy of this card. I like her tattoo there. You see that? So we got the air, the element of air. Now, as far as if you guys know what that means, let me know. Like I think of scales, like trying to find a balance. But what we're seeing above the triangles, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be like, what do you call it? A scythe? Is that, or a sickle, or like scales? I'm not for certain, but yeah, it does. Maybe it's alluding to the 2 swords being crossed. I'm not sure on that one. I'd have to research that portion a bit more. Let's see here. And so we see that she's got 2 crows, and it's like here she is trying to turn inward and gain this insight, but they're trying to like caw at her and distract her. And it looks like there's one on either side of her trying to get her to go their way. And it looks like it's her hair that they're trying to grab onto. So that would be trying to cause her a certain amount of pain and discomfort in the process. But if you look, she's able to, it looks like maybe her hand's here because she's trying to prevent this one from pulling a lot of her hair out. But then here we've got this arm that's turned the way it is. Yeah, to me, it's like her just not giving in to either one, And then we've got a lot of that. There's some like white, like speckles around her, which kind of alludes to that white. And then we've got the clear sky. So in contrast to the Rider-Waite-Smith, it's not, say at night with that crescent moon. But I like what the artist did here. I really did. It's a really cool picture to look at. Now with this one, what we're seeing is it's like 2 sides of us, okay? It's like the side that we choose to be, say if we're around certain people or at work, and then there's the one where, we're a different person around other people, but then you see how her face is not there. So it's like having to make a decision about, okay, how do you believe? Are these masks that you wear truly representative of who you are and what you believe? And how does that make you feel on the inside? And kind of like what the author of the deck had wrote about this card. She did state she purposely went into a different direction with it, to where basically the central figure in this card must ask, have they lost themselves? What does their true face look like? And I like how she's sitting on both swords. They are crossed to show the impasse and that conflict, and her knees are on both. So it just goes to show there's no forward momentum. She's on her knees. One mask, the eyes are open. So we're talking about that, just awareness, one being turned inward. And then again, the central character looks like maybe there's wind blowing through the hair. There's no face. So I thought that was different. It's a different way of looking at the card, I think, with that internal conflict that we all go through in life, especially if we don't meet people's expectations, or society tells us that we should do a certain thing, we should desire certain things, but it doesn't resonate with us, and that's not what we want. That's not what we believe. And maybe you want to keep the peace and go with the flow, just keep the peace wherever you work or with your family. But after so long of doing that, do you remember who you are in the process? What did that do as a result to your insides and your life? Are you where you want to be? So I like what the author did with that. I do. It's just different. And then always like end things with a card not based on Rider-Waite-Smith, to always demonstrate the point of when people are learning, it's ideal. And it makes more sense to have a deck based in Rider-Waite-Smith. It doesn't have to be the Rider-Waite-Smith, but that is the foundation of tarot. So with this, we have beautiful art. This is from the Hush Tarot, and it's a mask. Okay. It looks like maybe like it's somewhat planted in the ground or broken. The eyes are milky. So I can see just not having that visibility, that obscured vision. Kind of like that story about Odin and how he hung upside down from a tree after, poking one of his eyes out, trying to obtain, like say that third eye, because he understood that our eyes can lie to us, and just gaining that insight and knowledge. Well, what the artist did here, it was like, it's two cats. Okay. So technically we've got two. We've got the Roman numeral for 2, and we've got swords on the top. There is some vegetation around them, so we do have some flowers. One looks a bit shy and reserved, and the other one's very inquisitive. And then the mouth, there's nothing really coming out of that mouth, really. So I don't know. Like, I know how I can maybe piece them together based on my knowledge of tarot, but if I was from years ago, say if this was my first deck, I would have been so confused, especially being a solitary learner, that there's no way. I wouldn't have gained the same insight as what I would have from the Rider-Waite-Smith, So, again, we don't have any common symbols, no common color use, So, yeah, that would totally be confusing. Even this one, the Tarot of the Abyss, I love that deck, and the artist took a different direction with this card, but that would be confusing. I mean, we do have some commonality, even though here the swords are, are underneath her knees there as she's bent. So we have that. Again, I love it with those symbols and colors cross over. It makes sense to me, And that's the Light Seers, which is a popular deck. Even when I read for people at the Grand Slam, they love the Light Seers deck. And then this one. Very cool. So I think that wraps us up on this card. Do you guys have any questions or any other insights or input? I'll hang out for a moment before I, finish the go live. But Tim Clark, because I have to make sure I say your last name because my husband is Tim. I know you met Tim when you said hi to us. So guys, I met Tim Clark at the craft fair at Fox High School. Yeah, so it was really cool. I met both him and his wife. They're good people. No? All right, guys. Well, I will check back later for any other comments. And I think we're good to go. And then tomorrow, what is it? We will do the Three of Swords tomorrow, which is a sword that it's just very much, it's not a comfortable card at all. There's a lot of different meanings assigned to the Three of Swords. So that would probably be a good one to tune into. And Namaste. Oh, that's cool. I like what you did there, Tim. Thank you very much. And I'm so, again, thrilled to have you in our group. I'm looking forward to your card of the day on Friday. That way our group can see your style and how you see things, because you shared insight tonight, which is really good. So I appreciate your contributions. And Honor, of course, I appreciate you too. You're pretty cool too. So I will see you guys later. You have a good restful evening and stay warm.